On the day I miscarried, my husband was on a snow-covered mountain, raising a glass in celebration with another woman. I lay on a cold hospital bed, watching their video rack up tens of thousands of likes, while I couldn't even get a single phone call from him. When I got home, I was kicked out of the master bedroom. She wore my dress, used my glass, and made me pour her wine in front of everyone. They thought I would keep enduring it, stay quiet, convenient, and dependent. The kind of wife who never leaves. What they didn't know was this: the marriage had an expiration date, and I had already started the countdown. When the contract expired, identities were restored, and the truth came out. Their world collapsed. The harsh hospital lights burned my eyes. A nurse said softly, "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Carter." I touched my now flat abdomen. Just moments ago, there had been a tiny life there. My phone vibrated in my palm. A notification lit up, Daniel Carter's latest post. The video autoplayed on a snow-blanketed slope. My husband wore ski goggles and smiled with unrestrained joy. Beside him, Sophia clung to his arm. Together, they raised champagne flutes to the camera. #best ski season partner. That was Sophia's caption. My fingers went numb, not from the cold, but because something inside me had died. The voice of the butler, Mr. Harold, came from the hospital room doorway, cold as an iron gate in winter. "Madam, the car is ready. Sir and Mrs. Carter hope you'll return to the main house tonight to rest." "Where's Daniel?" I asked. "Master Daniel is in Aspen. He'll be back next week." I nodded and put my phone away. Just before the screen went dark, I saw the number of likes, 23,000. Back at the house that felt more like a museum, my mother-in-law Eleanor sat by the fireplace. She didn't look up. Her voice was as calm as if she were talking about the weather. "Emily, you need to understand your place. As a Carter daughter-in-law, your primary duty is to be presentable." "I miscarried," I said. "Mother." She finally glanced at me, appraising me like a cracked piece of porcelain. "What Daniel needs is a partner who doesn't distract him. Do you understand what I mean?" I did. I'd understood 5 years ago, the moment I signed that marriage agreement. I was Daniel Carter's stabilizing factor, the sedative for his manic episodes, the prerequisite for him to inherit the family empire. I was never his lover. I nodded obediently. "I understand," but in my mind, I marked the date in bold red ink, day 37. 37 days until the 5-year contract expired. Late that night, Daniel came home, carrying the chill of wind and snow. He looked at me the way one looks at a piece of furniture. "You're moving into the guest room. I need the master bedroom." Sophia followed behind him, wearing my slippers. I lifted my head and, for the first time, didn't avoid his gaze. "Okay. What did you say?" I said okay. I stood up from the sofa. "I'll pack now." Daniel froze. He probably expected tears, pleading, humiliation, the way I'd been for the past 5 years. But I simply went upstairs, opened the walk-in closet, and started packing. Not everything, only what truly belonged to me. The old sweater I wore in college, the pearl necklace my mother left me, a few books filled with handwritten notes. "What are you doing?" Daniel demanded from the doorway. "Exactly what you want," I said, zipping the suitcase shut. The sound was sharp, like a blade slicing through air. Moving out. As I passed him, I caught the scent of Sophia's perfume clinging to him. My heart didn't ache. It felt frozen, heavy, numb, beating mechanically. So this was it. When pain reaches its extreme, you stop feeling it at all. 5 years ago, that afternoon had been just as cold. Despite the sunlight, the lawyer slid a thick stack of documents toward me. "Medically bound marriage agreement," he read in a flat tone. 5-year term. During this period, Emily Reed will serve as Daniel Carter's legal companion to assist with emotional stabilization and ensure a smooth transition of control within the Carter Group. "To put it simply," Daniel said from across the long table, not even looking at me, "your presence makes me look more normal. My dad's dead, and the bored vultures are waiting for me to lose my mind." He wasn't wrong. He was ill, bipolar disorder. During manic episodes, he shattered anything he could get his hands on, and I, by coincidence or fate, was one of the few people who could calm him down. The doctors couldn't explain why. They said it was like opposite poles of a magnet. "After 5 years, you'll get a generous settlement," Daniel continued. Enough to start over in another city, but during these 5 years, you need to play Mrs. Carter properly. Understood? I was 21. My aunt, my only family, had just died. I was buried in medical school debt. So I signed. Now, Sophia had moved into the main house as a guest. She wasn't a guest. She was a queen in waiting, and I was the temporary extra who was supposed to exit the stage. At dinner, in front of everyone, she handed me her wine glass. Emily, darling, could you pour me some more? The servant stood motionless against the wall. The entire table went silent. Daniel's parents, his sister, 2 business partners. Everyone was watching. Daniel kept cutting his steak, not even looking up. I took the glass and walked to the wine cabinet. My hand was steady. Not a single drop spilled. That night, after the entire house had fallen asleep, I slipped into Daniel's study. I knew the password. All his passwords were the name of his first dog, a Labrador that had died before I ever arrived. The safe was hidden behind an oil painting. 3rd shelf. Blue folder. Medically bound marriage agreement, the original. I carried it to the copier. The machine hummed low and steady, page after page. Each sheet was 5 years of my life, sold off in black and white. As the last page finished copying, I heard footsteps outside the door. I quickly returned the original, shut the safe, stuffed the copies inside my robe, turned off the light, and hid behind the heavy curtains. The door opened. Daniel and Sophia's laughter spilled into the room. You're sure she hasn't noticed anything? Sophia asked. She? Daniel scoffed. Emily? She wouldn't even dare step on an ant. She needs this place. She needs me. Without the Carter family, she's nothing. The sound of their kisses was sticky in the darkness. I stayed motionless behind the curtain, my breath so light it might as well not exist. The copies pressed against my chest, the edges of the paper cutting into my skin. Day 36. Sophia was starting to take over the house. She redecorated the living room, replaced the curtains, and stashed my collected artworks in storage. These are too dull for the Carter aesthetic, she told the servants, her eyes on me. We need something bright, something lively. My dinner had been accidentally skipped. A servant lowered his head. Miss Sophia said tonight was a small family gathering. I assumed you wouldn't be joining. Daniel laughed with Sophia at the dining table, the silver candelabras casting their faces in warm light. I turned and went upstairs. My stomach ached, but I wasn't hungry. At 2 a.m., the pain sharpened. I got up and drove myself to the ER. Acute gastritis. The doctor asked. Any family here? No. He glanced at me with pity. I wore a simple t-shirt and jeans. No wedding ring, I had removed it long ago. Should I notify someone? No need. I hung in 4 in the freezing ER. My phone was silent. No missed calls. No messages. By dawn, I returned home. The house was quiet, everyone asleep in sweet dreams. I opened my laptop and created a new document, records. First line, day 1 of 37, miscarriage at the hospital. Daniel skiing in Aspen. Video posted. Second line, day 2, ordered out of the master bedroom. Sophia moved in. Third line, day 3, dinner intentionally skipped. Daniel said you won't starve. Fourth line, day 4, acute gastritis ER visit. Unknown to anyone. Dates, witnesses, locations, direct quotes. A meticulous log of a slow-motion murder, my dignity shredded page by page. Then I searched for Manhattan's top divorce lawyers. Among the top 3, I chose the only woman, Victoria Lane. When the call connected, my voice was calmer than I expected. I'd like to consult about a marriage contract. Not convenient to meet in person, can we discuss over the phone? Victoria's voice was clear and professional. Of course. May I ask the term of your contract? 5 years. 36 days left. And the specific terms? I summarized, medically bound, emotional stabilization, separation payout. A pause on the other end. Ma'am, under New York law, a marriage contract maintained under specific conditions automatically expires when the conditions cease or the term ends. In other words, after 36 days, you're no longer bound. You don't need his consent to leave. Legally, you will be free. I gripped my phone until my knuckles whitened. And if he doesn't know, that works in your favor. Victoria's voice held a trace of a smile. Wait until the term ends. Then leave. He has no legal way to force you to stay. After hanging up, I looked out the window. The sun was rising. Day 35. The countdown to freedom. On the charity gala invitation, Daniel and Sophia's names were listed side by side. Mine appeared at the very bottom. Small and discreet, Emily Carter. I recognized the dress Sophia wore, silver white, adorned with crystals. Custom ordered by Daniel in Paris last year. He had said, "You'll wear it for your birthday ball." Now it shone on Sophia, blindingly, as if to pierce everyone's eyes. At the gala, I was seated at a corner table. Daniel and Sophia occupied the main table, laughing with the mayor and socialites. Someone asked Sophia, "So, you and Daniel are?" She smiled shyly, not denying anything. Whispers rippled through the room. I knew what they were saying. The real Mrs. Carter, the one in the corner, was finally about to exit the stage. Midway through, Sophia approached, holding a wine glass. Her voice just loud enough for several nearby tables to hear. "Emily, thank you for taking care of Daniel all these years. I know it hasn't been easy, given you and he were never from the same world. Taking care in place. The same world." Every word felt like a needle. Daniel was not far, talking with a group. He heard it. He must have. Yet he didn't move, didn't turn, didn't refute. I lifted my water glass and drank. Ice cold. It ran down my throat, freezing every word I wanted to say. Then I noticed the seating chart. Someone, who I couldn't tell, had crossed out Carter in ink and neatly written beside it, "Reed. Emily Reed." My fingers traced the name, Reed. Touching it felt like brushing against a distant, nearly forgotten dream. After the gala, I waited in the parking lot. Daniel and Sophia left first, never asking if I needed a ride. My phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message, "Time to come home. Emily." No signature. I looked up. Across the lot, a black sedan sat quietly. The window rolled down halfway. A silhouette nodded at me. Then the car merged into the night. Day 30. That night, I dreamed of California. Not a dream, memory. Blazing sunlight. Endless vineyards. The summer wind carrying sea salt and oak. My last name was Reed. Not Carter by marriage, but born a Reed. 20 years ago. A medical crisis. Not mine, it was the Carter heir. Daniel, 7, had his first manic episode, nearly leaping from a third-floor window. Doctors were helpless, until someone mentioned a rare stabilizer trait, only a few people born with the ability to calm certain others. At the time, 5-year-old me, by coincidence at a gathering, had quieted the raging Daniel. A deal was struck between the two families. The Reed family, then in financial trouble, received Carter family aid, on the condition of me. She will get the best education, the best care, Daniel's father had said, and Daniel will have a normal life. I was placed with the Carter family, first as a playmate, then as a friend, and finally as a wife. They erased my past. A new school, new friends, a new name. Everyone called me Emily Carter, Daniel's little shadow. I even started to believe that I had never had roots of my own, that I was just drifting wherever I was put. Until now. I opened my laptop and searched, Reed family, California. The news results popped up immediately. Wine empire, charitable foundations, 2 recent tech acquisitions, and a family photo. Father, Robert Reed. Mother, Eleanor, the same name as my mother-in-law. How ironic. Older brother, Ryan. And in the lower right corner, a small line of text, youngest daughter Emily passed away due to illness 20 years ago. They hadn't forgotten me. They thought I was dead. My hands were shaking as I found the Reed Group's public phone number and dialed. "Please transfer me to Robert Reed's office," I said, my voice trembling. The secretary asked politely, "May I ask who's calling?" Tell him Emily is calling." 30 seconds of silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 20 years, yet recognized instantly. "Emily? Dad." One word it had taken me 20 years to say. "I want to come home." There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear someone breathing hard, trying to hold it together. Then he said, "The car has been waiting for you in New York for a week now. My daughter, we never left you." So the black sedan. The nod from the man inside, it hadn't been my imagination. It was family. Day 25. Daniel started to notice the change in me. I no longer avoided his eyes. I stopped making excuses for Sophia's provocations. I no longer sat at the table like silent wallpaper. "You've been very quiet lately," he said one morning at breakfast, his tone probing. "I've always been quiet," I replied calmly, spreading butter on my toast. "It's different," he said, watching me closely. "What are you planning?" Sophia set down her cutlery, the sound crisp. "Daniel, stop being paranoid. What could Emily possibly be planning? She can't even decide tomorrow's lunch menu." I smiled, an actual smile, not the timid, ingratiating one from before. "You're right," I said, looking at Sophia. "I really can't decide the lunch menu, but I could decide my own life." That afternoon, Daniel's private physician came by. I just so happened to overhear their conversation from outside the study. "So Daniel's recent stability, is it related to Emily?" the doctor asked. Daniel sounded impatient. "Of course not. It's the new medication, plus Sophia's company. Emily? She's just furniture, actually," the doctor said, flipping through papers. "According to recent studies, that piece of furniture may have been your most important emotional stabilizer for the past 5 years. However, current data suggests that even without her, your condition can remain stable. In other words, Daniel, you no longer need her. And the contract, per the original plan, it expires at the end of the month." Footsteps approached the door. I slipped quickly into the hallway, my heart pounding. No longer need her. 5 words that sentenced 5 years of my life. That night, Daniel received an email. I watched him open it, his expression shifting from confusion to shock before he snapped the screen shut. He looked at me, his gaze complicated. I knew what it was, the formal notice of contract expiration, a legal document, sent automatically, but he said nothing. He chose to hide it. Day 20. I began erasing my existence. Not all at once, that would have been too obvious. Just a little every day. A book, a photo, a piece of clothing I didn't wear often. I mailed them to a P.O. box I'd rented. Sophia was too busy reveling in her future as lady of the house to notice. Daniel was buried in corporate affairs and didn't care. Until one morning, he opened the walk-in closet and saw that my side was nearly empty. "What does this mean?" he demanded at breakfast. I set down my coffee, pulled the copies from my bag, and slid them across the table. Medically bound marriage agreement. Every page bore my signature from 5 years ago. Daniel's face drained of color. "Where did you get this?" "You're safe. The password is Bella, right?" Sophia snatched the papers and flipped through them, her eyes widening. "What is this?" "Daniel, you said your marriage was real." "We are married," I said calmly. "Legally. But according to this document, in 5 days, the prerequisite conditions disappear. I'm no longer your emotional stabilizer, Daniel. I'm just Emily Reed. You can't leave." Daniel shot to his feet, the chair screeching across the floor. "You need me. Without this place, you're nothing." 5 years ago, that sentence would have shattered me. Now, I only felt pity. "I've already arranged movers for tomorrow morning," I said, standing as well. "Don't worry. I'll only take what truly belongs to me. I won't take a single thing from the Carter family." "Even the black card?" Sophia shrieked. "Even the black card." I looked at her steadily. "You want the position of Mrs. Carter? Take it. But let me warn you, it's cold at the top." I turned and walked out of the dining room. Behind me came the sound of Daniel smashing a glass, Sophia screaming, servants rushing in chaos. I didn't look back. Day 5. The black sedan waited at the agreed street corner. The driver stepped out and opened the door for me. "Miss Reed." Not Mrs. Carter. Miss Reed. The car left New York, heading west. Outside the window, the city faded into fields, then mountains, then the California sunlight I remembered. When the gates of the estate opened, my breath caught. 20 years. The vineyards were still there. The white columns of the main house still stood. The swing on the porch was still there. 3 people waited on the steps. My mother covered her mouth, tears streaming silently. My father held her tightly, his eyes red. And my brother Ryan, he had been 10 when I left. Now he was broad-shouldered, fully grown. He stepped forward, then stopped as I got out of the car, as if afraid I might vanish. "Emily?" His voice was hoarse. I nodded, unable to speak. Then my mother rushed forward and wrapped me in her arms, sobbing out loud. My child, my baby. That night, we sat in the living room until dawn. The fire crackled in the fireplace, and my mother kept holding my hand, as if afraid I might disappear again. My father finally told me the truth. Back then, the Carter family's condition had been complete custody, cutting off all contact between me and the Reeds. They said it was to protect you, and to protect Daniel. My father said, pain heavy in his voice. We thought at least you would be treated well. They lied to all of us, Ryan said coldly, including you, Emily. They made you believe you had nowhere to go, that you could only depend on them. Our legal team is ready, my father said. Tell us what you want. Revenge, compensation, a public apology, whatever you ask for. The firelight danced across their faces. I looked at my father, my mother, my brother. For 20 years, they had lived with the grief of losing a daughter. For 20 years, I had lived inside a cage where my past was erased. We were all victims. I don't want revenge, I said at last. I want fairness. I want my stolen life back, on my own terms. Ryan studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, then fairness it is. Day 0. The contract expiration date. I was free. At first, Daniel thought I was throwing a tantrum. 3 days without answering his calls? Typical Emily-style silent protest. He assumed I'd come back on my own to apologize. On the 4th day, he sent the housekeeper to check the guest room. Madam isn't there. Her belongings, almost all of them, are gone. Daniel stormed upstairs. Half the closet was empty. On the vanity, only perfumes and jewelry bought by the Carters remained. Everything that belonged to Emily, old books, faded photographs, handwritten letters, was gone. In the study, he found the safe door slightly ajar. The original contract was still there, but beside it was a note. The copies have been archived. Wishing you and Sophia happiness. Emily Reed. He stared at the surname, as if seeing it for the first time. Panic began to spread. He called my phone, disconnected. Checked my credit cards, cancelled. Reached out to my old friends, everyone shook their heads. Emily? Haven't been in touch for ages. On the 5th day, the group's lawyer arrived in a hurry. Daniel, the marriage contract officially expired yesterday. According to the terms, Ms. Emily Reed has automatically regained full legal freedom and is entitled to the agreed settlement. However, our records show she never applied for payment. What does that mean? It means she didn't take a single dollar, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses. She just left. Cleanly. At that moment, Daniel's sister burst into the study, holding up her tablet. Daniel, look at the news. The headline read, Lost Reed family daughter returns after 20 years. The accompanying photo showed me arriving in California the day before, Ryan helping me out of the car, my parents waiting on the steps. The article detailed the story of Emily Reed, secretly fostered by the Carter family for 20 years, hinting at an undisclosed deal between the families. Daniel's phone began vibrating non-stop. Board members, business partners, reporters, everyone asking the same question, what has the Carter family been hiding? Sophia rushed in, her face bloodless. Daniel, my dad just called. He said our engagement is on hold. The media is calling you a kidnapper. Daniel collapsed into a chair, realizing for the first time she was really gone, and she had never been a homeless orphan. She was a Reed. The welcome back gala was held at the Reed estate. Nearly all of California's elite attended, not out of respect for the Carters, but for the Reeds. I wore a simple white dress, my hair cut to shoulder length, no extravagant jewelry, only the pearl necklace my mother placed back around my neck. When Ryan walked me into the hall, the room fell silent for a beat, then applause broke out. Not applause for Mrs. Carter, applause for Emily Reed. In his speech, my father said, 20 years ago, out of love, we made a terrible decision and let our daughter go. Today, she has come home. From this day forward, every resource and every ounce of strength the Reed family has will support Emily's choices, unconditionally. The applause swelled again. I saw tears in the eyes of many in the crowd, uncles and aunts who had watched me grow up, believing I had died long ago. Then the doors were shoved open violently. Daniel stood there, his suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. Emily, he shouted over the music. Come back with me. The hall went silent. Ryan stepped forward, placing himself in front of me. Mr. Carter, you're not on the guest list. Daniel glared at Ryan, then at me, his face twisting with rage. So it's true? You found a new man this fast? Who is this pretty boy? A sharp intake of breath rippled through the crowd. I gently pulled Ryan aside and walked up to Daniel. The spotlight locked onto us, like the worst scene in a stage play. Daniel Carter. My voice carried through the hall via the microphone. Allow me to make a formal introduction. This is Ryan Reed, my older brother. And these, I gestured toward the head table, are my parents, Robert and Eleanor Reed. I am Emily Reed, one of the legal heirs of the Reed Group. No, Daniel shook his head. You're lying. You're Emily Carter, my wife, formerly. I cut him off. Under New York law and the agreement we signed 5 years ago, our marriage automatically ended 5 days ago. I have no relationship with you now. Cameras flashed wildly. The reporters smelled the story of the year. But I love you, Daniel suddenly shouted, his voice breaking. I didn't realize until I lost you. Emily, I was wrong. Let's start over. You love me? I repeated softly. Then do you remember our wedding anniversary? He froze. Do you remember my mother's name? Silence. Do you remember what I majored in at college? His lips trembled. You don't love me, Daniel. My voice was frighteningly calm. You loved the version of me that could keep you calm. You loved my obedience. You loved a shadow that wouldn't resist. Now the shadow has its own light. And you call that love? Ryan put his arm around my shoulder. Security. Daniel was still shouting my name as he was escorted out. But the applause rose again, louder than before. This time, it was for my rebirth. The next day, Daniel held a press conference. He looked exhausted, but neatly dressed. His tone earnest. I offer my deepest apologies to Ms. Emily Reed. Over the past 5 years, due to health issues and family pressure, I failed to be a proper husband. The camera zoomed in, and his eyes glistened. But I never stopped having feelings for her. Losing her made me realize what love really is. I am willing to do anything to make amends, to earn back her trust. Social media immediately lit up. Maybe he really has changed. A prodigal son returning? Should Emily give him a chance? That afternoon, the Reed Group issued a brief statement. Ms. Emily Reed will publicly respond tonight at 8 p.m. Everyone assumed I would soften. At precisely 8 p.m., accompanied by the family lawyer and Ryan, I appeared on live stream. No tears, no display of emotion, only calm. Thank you all for your concern, I said, looking directly at the camera as if at the countless eyes beyond it. Regarding Mr. Daniel Carter's apology, I have 2 points to clarify. I held up a USB drive. First, this contains the full recording of the marriage agreement signed 5 years ago. I was 21, just lost my guardian, and in debt from student loans. Please listen to how this marriage truly began. The technician played the recording. Daniel's young, arrogant voice filled the room. Simply put, your presence makes me look normal. After 5 years, you'll receive a substantial settlement. But during these 5 years, you must play the role of Mrs. Carter. Understand? My voice. 20-year-old me. Barely audible. I understand. The recording continued, lawyers explaining the terms in detail. Daniel interrupting, urging, and me silently signing page after page. Finally, Daniel said, remember, Emily, once you walk out that door, you are Mrs. Carter. Forget your old name, your old life. You need me far more than I need you. The recording ended. The room was silent. Second, I continued. I wish to release an email. This is from Ms. Sophia Lewis, the current partner of Mr. Carter, sent yesterday to the media anonymously. The screen switched to the email. Sophia detailed how Daniel concealed the contract expiration, how he planned to emotionally manipulate me into staying, even noting that he privately said, Emily cannot live without me. She has no choice. So, I looked into the camera, my voice clear. This is not a love story, nor a prodigal son fairy tale. This was 5 years of control disguised as saving, and I was lucky enough to reclaim my name and my way home when the contract ended. I stood. My response ends here. From now on, I will focus on the Reed family business and my new life. I will no longer respond to any inquiries regarding this matter. I turned and walked away, the camera flashes exploding behind me. Ryan was waiting backstage, handing me a glass of water. "You okay?" I nodded, taking the cup, my hands trembling slightly, but not from fear. It was because I had finally spoken the truth. In the following week, the Carter Group's stock dropped 40%. 3 major partners announced project suspensions. Pending internal review, the media began digging into the Carter family's dealings over the past 20 years, raising questions. Sophia's family publicly cut ties. We had no knowledge of Ms. Lewis's involvement with Mr. Carter. We are disappointed she chose to participate in such unethical behavior. The walls fell, and everyone pushed. Daniel's father attempted to contact mine, his tone unusually earnest. "Robert, we've known each other 40 years. Can we sit down and talk about the children's situation?" My father replied with a single sentence. "When my daughter wants to talk, she will reach out. Until then, the Carter family does not exist for the Reeds." The irony, Daniel truly fell ill. Not feigned, his bipolar disorder relapsed. Worse than ever. Media reported he destroyed everything in his Manhattan apartment and was rushed to the hospital. The Carter family relived their 20-year-old fear. Without Emily, Daniel would spiral out of control. Eleanor Carter personally flew to California. Not the high and mighty socialite from before, but a desperate mother. She waited outside my office for 3 hours. When she finally saw me, she nearly fell to her knees. "Emily, please. I know Daniel was wrong. We were all wrong. But he needs you now. The doctors say only you can calm him, Eleanor," I said, calling her by name for the first time. She froze. "5 years ago, I sat in your living room, just after losing my child. You told me I had to know my place. Now, I understand." I stood and walked to the window, looking down at the lush vineyard of the estate. My place is not anyone's medicine, not anyone's stabilizer, not anyone's shadow wife. I turned to her. "I am Emily Reed. My value is not in how I can calm someone, but in who I choose to be." Her face turned ashen. "But he'll destroy himself, maybe," I said softly. "But that is his choice. His responsibility, not my life, not my obligation." As security escorted her out, she looked back one last time. Her gaze was complex, resentment, despair, and some belated understanding. That night, Ryan asked me, "Do you feel any guilt?" I thought for a long time. "No," I said. "I spent 5 years feeling guilty for someone else's pain. Now, I only take responsibility for my own healing." Daniel's first public appearance after being discharged was outside the Carter Group boardroom. Reporters swarmed him. His face was pale, eyes unfocused. "I need to see Emily, only she can save me." The video went viral. Captioned, "Heiress husband collapses for love?" Sympathy started to emerge. People always empathize with the seeming weak. Some columnists even wrote, "Even if he was wrong, is this punishment too harsh?" After all, love makes people blind. Ryan slammed the tablet onto the table. "What do these people know?" My father pressed a hand on his shoulder and looked at me. "Emily, what do you think?" I closed the video and looked out the window. The California sun poured generously over the vineyard leaves. "I want to go to New York," I said. The whole family froze. "Not to see him," I added, "but to end things. Publicly. Completely." 3 days later, I stood in a conference hall at a New York hotel. No advance notice had been given, but reporters flooded in, filling the room. "I'll say this only once, so listen carefully," I said, looking into the camera, my voice calm. "Regarding Mr. Daniel Carter and his health, I have 3 statements. First, 5 years ago, due to my own vulnerability and youthful ignorance, I signed a medical binding marriage agreement. That was my mistake, and I accept responsibility for it. Second, over these 5 years, I fulfilled every obligation of that agreement, including enduring public humiliation, emotional neglect, and facing my miscarriage entirely alone. The cost I paid far exceeds any monetary measure." I paused, taking a deep breath, recalling the cold hospital lights, the empty master bedroom, Sophia laughing in my gown. Third, and most importantly, my voice trembled slightly, but remained clear. I lost a child, on the day I needed a husband most. He was celebrating on social media with another woman. That pain cannot be erased or offset by apologies. illness, or any need. The hall was so silent. You could hear the air. So when someone asks, "Should you save him again?" my answer is no. I am not medicine. I am not a sacrifice. I am not anyone's salvation. I am a living person, flesh and blood, who feels pain, who cries, and who chooses not to sacrifice myself for those who have hurt me. I turned and left. No answers. No glances back. That press conference shifted public opinion. The next day, mainstream media headlines read, "She is not medicine, Emily Reed refuses to bear responsibility for ex-husband's illness." Subheadline, "From being saved to saving herself, a woman's path to rebirth." Daniel was voted out of all positions by the Carter Group board, not because of his illness, but due to severely impaired judgment, harming company interests. Photos surfaced of him wandering the streets, disheveled, murmuring to the air, "Emily, my Emily." Sophia disappeared completely. Rumor had it she went to Europe, taking jewelry and cash from Daniel to start anew. Meanwhile, I remained in California, officially taking over the Reed Family Charitable Foundation. My first project, funding higher education for young women, especially those trapped in circumstances that make them think they have no choice. The project name was simple, Choice. At the launch ceremony, a reporter asked, "Will you keep track of Daniel Carter's condition?" I looked at the hundreds of young faces in the audience, eyes shining with hope. "I focus on the future," I said, "on what choices these girls can have, what possibilities await them. As for the past, it has already fulfilled its purpose. It made me the person standing here today." After the event, Ryan handed me a photo. Paparazzi had captured Daniel in a park, clutching an old sweater, the very one I had left at the Carter estate 5 years ago. "Deal with it?" Ryan asked. I stared at the photo a moment, then handed it back. "No," I said. "He has already become his own prisoner. I am free." Ironically, 2 weeks later, at a business forum in San Francisco, I ran into Daniel. He was clearly well-dressed, trying to recapture his old charm, but the mania and despair in his eyes betrayed him. "Emily," he stopped me. "I've changed. I really have. Look, I'm in therapy. I'm studying. I'm Daniel." I interrupted. He paused, looking at me expectantly. "You don't recognize me," I said softly. "What? Of course I do. You're Emily." "No." I shook my head. "The Emily you know was the obedient, quiet, ever-present Emily Carter. That girl died in the hospital on the day of my miscarriage. In the skiing videos with you and Sophia. In every silent humiliation you allowed." I watched the light in his eyes fade. "The one standing before you now is Emily Reed. You never knew her." Security stepped in to separate him. I walked to my waiting car, never once looking back. As the window closed, I heard his last words, broken like shattered glass, "But I love you." The car merged into San Francisco's night, city lights sparkling like spilled stars. I leaned back in the seat and closed my eyes. No tears, no anger, no regrets. Only peace. Deep, complete, unshakable peace. 1 year later, at the Reed Group's annual conference, I gave the opening speech as the newly appointed vice president. 1,000 people filled the hall, shareholders, partners, media, and employees. The spotlight fell on me. I wore a simple navy suit, my short hair neat, a single strand of pearls around my neck. 1 year ago, I stood on a different stage, telling my story. I began, my voice carrying across the hall. "Today, I want to talk about the future." I clicked the remote, and the large screen behind me lit up. Not charts, not data. A simple black and white photo appeared, 5-year-old me, running through the vineyards at the Reed estate, hair flying, smiling joyfully. "This is Emily Reed," I said, before she was anyone else. She was first herself. The photo changed, 21-year-old me, signing the marriage contract, eyes vacant. "This is Emily Carter," I continued. She believed saving others defined her value. The final photo, me now, standing at the Reed estate gates, my parents and brother behind me, sunlight bathing us. "And this," I said, my voice slightly choked but firm, "is me today. I finally understand that true salvation is granting yourself freedom." The room erupted in applause. I spoke about Reed Group's new direction, sustainable agriculture, female leadership development, mental health initiatives, each project tied to my past, each pointing toward the future. At the end of the speech, I said, "Some have asked what this past year felt like. I want to say, this is not a story of revenge, nor a fairy tale of a princess being saved." I looked into the camera, into the eyes of every listener. It is the story of an ordinary person, lost for years, finally finding her way home. A woman, once defined as someone else's, reclaiming her story. And stories like this can happen to anyone. As long as you remember, your life is always your choice. At the post-conference celebration, my father put his arm around me. "Your mother cried the entire time." I smiled. "I nearly did too," he admitted, eyes red. "My daughter is finally home." Ryan raised his glass and came over. "To Emily, to being home." We clinked glasses. The champagne bubbles rose. Countless little celebrations sparkling in the glass. Midway through the event, an assistant approached quietly. "There's news. Daniel Carter was formally admitted to a long-term care facility this morning. The doctors say he requires professional supervision." I nodded, asking no further questions. Later, I walked alone to the terrace. The San Francisco night stretched out before me, an inverted sky of twinkling lights. My phone vibrated, an unknown number. I answered. Silent. "Emily?" Daniel's voice, unusually calm and clear. "I just wanted to tell you." "I understand now. I finally understand." I remained silent. "You were never my medicine," he continued, voice trembling with tears. "You are you. Always were. It was my selfishness, my fear, my stupidity, that tried to trap your light in my darkness. Take care of yourself, Daniel," I finally said. "I will." He paused. "And I'm sorry for everything." He hung up. I stood on the terrace for a long time, letting the night wind brush my face. Then I turned back to the banquet hall, to my family, my friends, my chosen life. The big screen showed the live feed of the dinner. Cameras swept over every smiling face, finally landing on me, Emily Reed, in the frame, dancing with my brother, eyes crescent-shaped with joy. No shadows from the past in that smile, only the light of the present. Her life was never about being saved. It was about reclaiming everything that had been taken, piece by piece, in her own name, in her own way, with the love for herself she had finally learned. And the most beautiful part of the story, not the thrill of revenge, not the excitement of triumph, but the rebirth. Every ordinary, brilliant day that followed, morning coffee, work challenges, a family hug, each free breath, finally being able to say, "I am Emily Reed. This is my story, and the best chapters are just beginning."